What's up guys, welcome back. This is anime fiction. You'll be watching What If Naruto Were an Artificial Intelligence in Marvel Part 8. Now, let's begin. What's up? Proceed without delay. Using the submarine's reconnaissance device, Spider-Man observed the holographic display as a shimmering blue bubble gradually expanded on the screen. The Atlantean warship ensnared within began to fade, its substantial structure dissolving into the expanding azure illumination. Then, an impactful moment occurred. The bubble burst in a stunning display of sapphire brilliance, resembling fireworks at the ocean's depths. The deep ocean transformed into a vibrant display of color, showcasing an underwater aurora that highlighted coral reefs, schools of fish, and gracefully moving kelp forests with remarkable clarity. Regarding the unfortunate Atlantean battleship, it had been transformed into particles within that remarkable blue explosion. Spider-Man paused, taken aback. Doom, please provide an accurate count of the remaining missiles. 3. Doom responded tersely, his tone as cold as the surrounding ocean. Spider-Man's enthusiasm diminished immediately. Excuse me, are there only 3? I believe we should have brought additional supplies. If you continue to speak, I will personally ensure you are placed into the next missile tube, Doom stated, maintaining focus on the console as his fingers moved deftly across it. I have already considered a name for the next project, Spider Missile. I would appreciate your feedback. Spider-Man ceased speaking. He had no inclination to assume the role of a human-shaped torpedo. In a different region of the ocean, Namor displayed a look of concern. He anticipated communication from the initial fleet of vessels that had been sent to neutralize the land-dweller submarine, information regarding a swift triumph to enhance morale prior to the Grand March. However, up to this point, there has been no progress. Hybo, Namor instructed, dispatch additional vessels for further investigation. Yes, Your Majesty. Hybo acknowledged with a nod and promptly ordered 3 additional warships to proceed to the location of the missing squad. Inside the submarine, Doom's gaze shifted to the monitor. 3 additional items are on the way. There was a subtle glimmer in Doom's eye, the kind of glimmer one exhibits when observing a beautifully destructive event unfold. He experienced a sense of elation upon witnessing that final blue firework. Excellent. It appears we will need to deploy additional spider missiles, Spider-Man remarked, observing the 3 enemy signals nearing. I was considering testing this new suit underwater. However, it may be more effective to utilize a different approach. Doom responded in a subdued manner. No need. His fingers swiftly navigated the console, securing a lock on the 3 approaching vessels. Let us extend to them a formal farewell. A new missile, characterized by its sleek design and shimmering blue glow, was launched from the side of the submarine with precision, resembling a spear of light. It surged through the depths, leaving a path of energy in its wake. Within one of the Atlantean vessels, a soldier reported with composure. No abnormalities detected, continuing approach. Hold on, what is that? A brief indication on the radar. A luminous object radiating with pristine energy. Before anyone on board could react, the brilliant azure light illuminated their field of vision. A brief moment of awareness passed before the entire scene was engulfed by the overwhelming brilliance. At Namor's command post, Hybo approached, clearly unsettled. King Namor, we have lost communication with 4 warships. Impact. Namor forcefully drove his trident into the seabed. A shockwave emanated from the impact, cascading through the formation of his soldiers. They recoiled, many struggling to keep their balance in the face of their king's overwhelming anger. Namor possessed unparalleled power throughout Atlantis, and that trident? Created by the ancient rulers themselves. Highly resilient and an effective means of managing all marine organisms. This is completely unacceptable, Namor stated sharply. Deploy the fleet. I wish to observe which of the surface dwellers is bold enough to confront Atlantis. A multitude of warships and armored sea creatures advanced with great force, moving directly towards Spider-Man and Doom. Within the submarine, Spider-Man observed the influx of adversary signals displayed on the monitor. The situation is escalating. What is our strategy moving forward? Doom remained unperturbed. I will launch the final missile as a farewell gesture. What happens next? Proceed. Spider-Man momentarily closed his eyes. That is, quite frankly, very characteristic of you. The Atlantean soldiers advanced with determination, yet exhibited signs of uncertainty. The 4 warships disappeared with remarkable swiftness. Is it possible for land dwellers to possess such power? Their submarines have consistently demonstrated shortcomings. Unexpectedly, a soldier positioned at the front observed a luminous object traversing the water. An enemy missile has been detected, he announced. It is no longer possible to proceed. The intense azure light erupted at the center of the formation. The cries were engulfed by the sound of devastation. The deep sea illuminated once more, projecting an ethereal light over the remnants of the wreckage. As the light diminished, an immaculate sphere of void persisted. A gap in the water measuring nearly 500 meters across. All assets, vessels, creatures, personnel, have vanished. Spider-Man observed intently. Swallowed with difficulty. What are the next steps? Doom's response was serious. Please proceed to run. In a brilliant flash of golden light, Doom and Spider-Man disappeared into the portal of the submarine. At the same time, the Atlanteans were filled with intense anger. Since when have the esteemed rulers of the sea experienced such significant losses, at the hands of those from the land, no less? Amidst their fury, a growing fear was present. The haunting azure light observed earlier had effects beyond merely destroying ships. It seemed as though a profound darkness had emerged from the abyss. Without delay, numerous water cannons and energy rays were unleashed from the Atlantean warships, targeting the land dwellers' submarine that remained nearby. A brilliant light illuminated the ocean floor. As the light diminished, the submarine became distinctly apparent, revealing itself as a wreck. The previously smooth exterior was now marked by numerous craters and fractures. Air bubbles consistently emerged from the fissures, ascending in continuous streams. Humans cannot endure such pressure. A select few approach for a closer examination, the fleet commander instructed with a steely gaze fixed on the damaged submarine. The warriors approached the vessel with serious expressions, navigating the waters with caution. The recollection of the azure explosion remained vivid, etched into their memories. Upon their arrival, the absence of any signs of resistance or attack led to a resurgence of their courage. Commander, the enemy submarine has experienced a complete loss of power. The hull is critically compromised. It is highly unlikely that anyone inside could have survived, one of them reported with assurance. Confident that the threat had subsided, the 4 formidable warships commenced their advance. Groups of Atlantean soldiers encircled the damaged submarine. Within the dimly lit, deteriorated submarine, the holographic display continued to emit a soft glow. On it, numbers decreased steadily, methodically tracking progress. "Shall we transport this item back, Commander?" one of the warriors inquired. The blue missile left a significant impact on them. If this technology could be retrieved and analyzed, it has the potential to significantly influence the outcome of future conflicts. Revert course. King Namor will grant us our due reward, the warship commander stated with composure. Within the confines of the submarine, the countdown reached its conclusion. A cold, robotic voice resonated from the speaker, commencing self-destruction procedure. A recognizable, eerie blue illumination emanated from the depths of the vessel. "Commander, observe, what is that?" One Atlantean warrior leaned toward a porthole, and paused in astonishment. Within, the cold blue light, resembling a sinister eye, intensified in brightness. The light cast an unsettling glow upon their faces. A number of soldiers in proximity exchanged glances. Without further discussion, they swiftly turned and departed at maximum pace. The blue illumination, it elicited an instinctual alert deep within them. "Excuse me, could you please clarify the situation?" the commander inquired. He did not receive a response. An enormous underwater bubble enveloped them, and in the following instant, the submarine detonated with a powerful surge of blue energy. The explosion obliterated all human remains, metal structures, and cognitive processes. Everything was accounted for. The energy radiated outward, expanding, before ultimately retracting into itself, condensing into a singularity and disappearing. Doom and Spider-Man emerged from a portal, rising above the surface. Spider-Man removed his mask, visibly unsettled. "Doesn't this seem like we are merely evading the situation? Who claimed we didn't make an impact?" Doom responded with a casual shrug. I left them a parting gift. However, I wouldn't anticipate that you would comprehend it given your current position. Spider-Man appeared as though he had ingested a spider. He was exceptionally talented, at the pinnacle of his class, but within the Sharp Blade Squad, Doom's intellect rendered him feeling like a novice with a calculator. He began to speak in protest, but Doom interrupted him. We should return and provide a report on the mission. A portal to Sword headquarters materialized before them, illuminated by a swirl of golden light. The two entered, vanishing as the portal sealed behind them. A young boy, unnoticed in the vicinity, observed the entire scene with wide eyes and a sense of astonishment. The ice cream had liquefied into a pool in his hand. That experience was quite alarming. Two costumed figures suddenly appeared and then disappeared without a trace. It fundamentally altered his perception of reality. Still clutching the melting cone, he became overwhelmed with emotion, let it fall, and hurried away in search of his parents. Under the ocean, Namor remained still, his brows furrowed in contemplation. A significant energy fluctuation was detected in the water. His thoughts turned to the 4 warships he had dispatched earlier, and a sense of unease washed over him. He firmly grasped his golden trident and propelled himself forward with precision, a gleaming streak in the depths of the ocean. As he approached the location of the previous conflict, a profound silence enveloped the area. As he progressed, his expression grew increasingly serious. Subsequently, King Namor, a voice exclaimed in distress. An Atlantean warrior rushed toward him, expression contorted in fear. He was among the fortunate individuals who had positioned themselves sufficiently away from the explosion to survive. King Namor, the man exclaimed, filled with urgency and trembling. They have departed, all of them, departed. Namor regarded him intently. The explosion resulted in total casualties, the soldier remarked, struggling to maintain his composure. His face displayed a noticeable sign of fear. The ensuing silence was profoundly impactful. Hive sat on the couch, his voice devoid of warmth and emotion, his attention fixed on the television screen. He was assimilating the vast influx of information emanating from this contemporary world. Today, unusual phenomena have been observed in various regions of the ocean. It has been confirmed that the cruise ship Princess, which was en route across the Pacific, has mysteriously disappeared. Witnesses report observing armed dolphins emerging from the waves. Earlier today, a tsunami impacted Neon Country, resulting in waves of debris being deposited along the shoreline. As the reports continued, Hive's illuminated eyes emanated a foreboding glow. Having assimilated the essence of more than a dozen Inhumans, his intellect was exceptionally keen, filled with strategic insight and a dark intent. Baron Strucker observed him intently. Hive's presence now radiated an extraordinary quality, an unsettling aura of ancient authority that caused discomfort among ordinary individuals. A group of subdued, distressed individuals was brought before Hive. Without delay, numerous bee-like parasites emerged from Hive's body and infiltrated theirs. He was collecting them, extracting their vitality to enhance his development. Each drop of essence fortified him. He sensed a heightened awareness, his thoughts crystallizing, and his abilities expanding. The president of Uzumaki Industries, Naruto Uzumaki, recognized as a leading inventor in the United States, made a rare public appearance today, reported the newscaster. He provided a detailed explanation for the unusual energy fluctuations at Uzumaki Tower, attributing them to a test run of an innovative energy weapon. Hive's eyes gleamed with curiosity. Uzumaki Industries will serve as the foundation of our strategy. However, Great One, Baron Strucker interjected, his tone serious. Uzumaki Industries stands as one of the most secure structures globally. Even the President's Black Palace does not compare. Previous infiltration attempts have consistently resulted in total failure. Hive maintained a steady gaze. This occasion will be distinct. I possess a formidable group of Inhumans. Strucker dedicated weeks to the recruitment of additional Inhumans under the Hive banner. Individuals who remained faithful to the old gods, seeking purpose, identity, and retribution. Hive was in a state of anticipation, awaiting the return of the final remnants of his ancient strength. Upon readiness, he would command this force to assault Uzumaki Industries, seize Naruto's body, and leverage the unmatched technological power of his empire to achieve global domination. The plan was somewhat conventional, outdated, perhaps even amusing in the contemporary landscape, but the unsettling reality was that it had the potential to succeed. A multitude of bee-like parasites emerged from the emptied human remains and made their way back to the hive. The remains, now devoid of life, fell into a disordered pile. Strucker's eyes exhibited a slight twitch. He had encountered death on numerous occasions, but this constituted a breach of fundamental existence. Hive regarded him with a measured tone. "Come. It is time to evaluate our new inhuman recruits." His voice lacked any emotional inflection, lack of compassion. The profound and unavoidable influence of fate. For the first time, a troubling thought entered Baron Strucker's mind. Had I made a grave error in resurrecting this so-called god? At the headquarters of SWORD, a streamlined space shuttle advanced toward the expansive orbital station. Each time I observe this location, I must say, it becomes increasingly impressive, Spider-Man remarked, his tone filled with admiration as he leaned closer to the shuttle's viewport. The station underwent a reorganization following the capture of Ronan's mothership, Dark Star. It no longer resembled a wing. Instead, it now hovered like a formidable sword penetrating the atmosphere, appropriate for an establishment known as the Sword Bureau. From the shuttle, numerous illuminated points were visible, rhythmically glowing across the station's surface: laboratories, reactors, and manufacturing facilities operating with continuous efficiency. "Agreed," Doom stated softly, his tone unexpectedly respectful. "Verification has been successfully completed. Confirmation received from authorized personnel." The voice of the Red Queen resonated within the shuttle. "Well done. The commander is awaiting your presence on the bridge." Spider-Man displayed a confident smirk. "I have observed the Red Queen extensively, and I maintain that she exhibits an excessive degree of humanity. One must consider the possibility that the commander may have integrated a human soul into that AI." Doom arched an eyebrow. "It would not be surprising. Naruto's approaches are quite unconventional." Even an individual as exceptional as Doom had to acknowledge that Naruto Uzumaki operated on a different plane of existence. The more Doom engaged in his studies under him, the more he perceived the insurmountable divide that distinguished them. Some of Naruto's advanced techniques were ones that Doom could only attempt to replicate, and any notion of innovating or surpassing them was out of reach. The shuttle docked seamlessly with SWORD's command platform, and the hatch opened with a controlled hiss. Doom and Spider-Man emerged together. "It appears that you both enjoyed an exciting trip," Pietro remarked, standing at the docking bay with his arms crossed, a subtle trace of envy in his tone. He aspired to be included in the mission as well, eager to witness Atlantis firsthand. Ultimately, the assignment was awarded to Doom and Spidey. "You would not believe what happened." Spider-Man began his account, speaking with enthusiasm as he provided Pietro with detailed descriptions and animated gestures. Doom exhaled deeply, massaging his temples. "Are these two compatible?" A situation poised for complications. And then, the entire Atlantean fleet was completely eliminated, Spider-Man concluded with a dramatic flourish. Pietro's eyes gleamed with enthusiasm, fully engaged in every word shared. The group ultimately reached the command bridge. Spider-Man finally ceased his verbal barrage, and Doom permitted himself a moment of deep relief. Finally, a moment of tranquility. "Commander, we have engaged the Atlanteans in the deep sea. Their scientific and technological capabilities are quite formidable. They have indeed developed a new form of underwater technology that is both unusual and effective," Doom reported succinctly, maintaining his steady tone. He and Spider-Man undertook the risk of approaching the Atlantean mother city, not Atlantis itself, but sufficiently near to analyze its defense systems and gain insight into their civilization. In contrast to terrestrial societies, Atlanteans developed along a distinct path, establishing a remarkable underwater civilization characterized by biomechanical innovations and pressure-based armaments. Within the bridge of the SWORD headquarters, a large holographic screen displayed an array of submarine surveillance data, detailed sonar maps, particle scans, and thermal anomalies, so intricate that Spider-Man found himself momentarily overwhelmed. "This material is quite challenging to comprehend," he remarked, rubbing his temples. Naruto remained composed, observing the raw data as it continued to scroll by. His eyes shimmered subtly with analysis, his neural network processing information at an extraordinary pace. There is a physiological shift following extended exposure to the energy field of the city, Naruto stated calmly, tapping one of the illuminated readouts. It is certainly valuable to engage in this study. Upon hearing the term, studying, both Spider-Man and Doom exhibited a noticeable reaction. They exchanged a knowing glance. Both individuals had observed firsthand the research conducted within Naruto's underground hive lab, remarkably advanced compared to contemporary science, yet profoundly unsettling. The previous occasion they visited, a biotank contained an entity that exhibited the peculiar behavior of potentially breathing in reverse. However, at their core, they recognized that Naruto was indeed correct. To navigate the challenges posed by a world filled with mutants, aliens, gods, and monsters, humanity must prioritize the acquisition of knowledge, even if it entails certain ethical compromises. Understood. This mission will be assigned to the Sharp Blade Squad, with Rogers designated as the field commander, Naruto stated, turning away from the screen. He did not perceive Namor as a genuine threat. In Naruto's perspective, Namor exhibited the least strength of character among all those who claimed the title of hero. He recalled a comic from his Earth. During Thanos' invasion, Namor, despite having just engaged in conflict with Wakanda, knelt and surrendered without resistance. Unacceptable. Spider-Man and Doom became alert instantly, a spark of enthusiasm evident in their expressions. An underwater conflict with the Atlanteans. This was not merely a routine reconnaissance mission or a standard containment operation. This was poised to be extraordinary. In the interim, a discreet assembly was taking place in a concealed chamber deep underground. A man stood at the center, delivering a compelling address to a room filled with Inhumans, their eyes ablaze with fervent intensity. "We are the selected individuals, the rightful inheritors of this planet," he asserted, his voice resonating powerfully. "Tens of thousands of years ago, we Inhumans inhabited the Earth while humans were just beginning to master fire. Why do we now find ourselves in the shadows?" A multitude of enthusiastic supporters responded to his call with nods and cheers. At the rear of the hall, Skye, also known as Daisy Johnson, made an effort to refrain from rolling her eyes. "Is that so? Governance of the Earth? Who continues to hold that perspective in 2025? Since the collapse of S.H.I.E.L.D., Skye has operated covertly, becoming a senior field agent in Coulson's newly re-established S.H.I.E.L.D. Upon receiving intelligence reports indicating the rise of an Inhuman cult, Coulson made the strategic decision to deploy her, an Inhuman, to conduct an infiltration of the group. She assimilated seamlessly, yet the delivery of such a theatrical villainous monologue ignited her frustration. At that moment, the preacher's eyes expanded with profound reverence. "At this moment, our God is present among us. Let us extend our worship and commitment." Skye became motionless. "That is not possible." A figure appeared from the rear of the stage. The atmosphere became charged. Even without direct eye contact, Skye sensed a change in pressure, as though the atmosphere itself adjusted to accommodate his presence. The hive. All Inhumans present in the room instinctively lowered themselves, kneeling in a coordinated display of submission. The hive possessed not only power but also emitted a biological command signal, intricately woven into their DNA by the ancient Kree. Resistance resembled an attempt to defy the laws of gravity. She instructed herself to run. Act promptly to avoid falling behind. Skye carefully retreated, attempting to exit the hall discreetly. Subsequently, she collided with an individual. She turned and observed two imposing Inhumans obstructing her way. Before she had the opportunity to respond, two metallic arms secured themselves onto her shoulders and pulled her back toward the stage. "Oh," the preacher observed, noting her difficulty. "It appears that one among us challenges divine authority. We shall determine whether she merits redemption or retribution." "Please release me," Skye exclaimed, struggling and writhing. "Maintain your composure. Please refrain from submitting. Please refrain from looking at him." Her thoughts were in turmoil. The hive's presence was akin to a black hole, drawing her will into its depths. She attempted to harness her energy, the powerful force that resided within her, but, as was often the case, it proved to be unyielding. It either activated at an inopportune time or remained unresponsive when it was most required. "At this moment, I cannot proceed. I would appreciate it if we could postpone this for the time being." Skyle. Immediately. She bit her lip, inhaled deeply, and released. Exciting development. A powerful shockwave emanated from her, propelling the two Inhumans into the air and incapacitating a significant portion of the crowd of kneeling worshippers. Particles of dust, beams of light, and fragments of stone permeated the atmosphere. The hall descended into disorder. The hive remained steadfast. His eyes shone with a deep intrigue. Remarkable talent, he murmured, intrigued. Uncommon. Subsequently, whoosh, he advanced swiftly, positioning himself directly in front of Sky, just inches away from her face. Embrace the role of a servant of God, he whispered. From his skin, numerous bee-like parasites emerged, converging directly towards her. Sky's body sent powerful shockwaves, lashing out at the swarm of bee-like insects that approached her. Why did it always happen to her? Sky couldn't help but ask herself the question. When the Kree invaded, she was injured, and now, once again, she'd encountered a self-proclaimed God. Was she cursed by the true God of Doom? As that stupid thought passed through her head, the swarm of bugs had already arrived, unaffected by the shockwaves she released. I am screwed. That was all Sky could think. Bang! A burst of azure light appeared in front of her eyes, and the incoming insects were quickly annihilated. A shadow loomed before her, black armor that gleamed faintly under the lights. Sky's heartbeat quickened as relief rushed over her. It was him. The one they dubbed the Black Devil. Just like before, when she confronted the Kree, he appeared just in time. So, should I call you a ridiculous god, or a beehive? Naruto's voice came coldly through his helmet, his curved eyepiece fixated on the monster not far away. Who are you? Hive inquired, narrowing his gaze and spoke with controlled hostility. The one who's going to kill you. Naruto's thrusters launched with a roar. In an instant, he was in front of Hive. His palm, gleaming with azure force, struck forward without hesitation. Boom. Boom. Each stroke of the energy beam detonated upon Hive's body, leaving charred, blackened wounds. Under the tremendous energy onslaught, segments of bugs squirmed, breaking away from Hive's body and dying on the ground. "Rahhhhhh!" Hive exclaimed in pain, but he did not waste time. His entire body exploded into a swirling cloud of insects, which spread around the hall. Naruto's hands swiftly formed a sealing gesture. A dark rift opened before him, a rift into nothingness, spewing pale, ghostly hellfire. The bugs that had disconnected from the hive screamed in anguish as the soul-burning fire devoured them, transforming them into wisps of black smoke that dispersed into the atmosphere. I'll remember you, Hive's voice rang through Naruto's ears. Remember me? Naruto's V-shaped eyepiece pulsed slightly. Good. Makes it easier next time. The remaining Inhumans, seeing their so-called god slain so easily, howled in wrath and charged toward Naruto like savage beasts. Sir, their minds are under psychic control. The Red Queen's voice echoed across Naruto's cerebral network. His eyes gleamed crimson. This hive is more dangerous than predicted. A blast of energy emitted from his body. The Inhumans came to a halt in the middle of their stride, clutching their heads and collapsing unconscious. Sky, thanks to her concussive ability, managed to keep upright, but only just. She stumbled slightly, barely overcoming Naruto's might. Mr. Black Devil. Mr. Black Devil. Sky came forward quickly, blocking Naruto's path just as he was about to depart. Naruto paused and tilted his head to look at her. Sky, born Daisy Johnson, was the daughter of two Inhumans and an important figure in Marvel Comics. She had previously been a member of S.H.I.E.L.D. and even joined the Avengers. Her power? The ability to generate strong oscillation shockwaves, analogous to seismic disturbances. She could produce earthquakes or direct the destructive energy to specific areas. If she fully grasped that power, she would be terrifying. Daisy nervously looked into Naruto's eyepiece and stated, I have something important to tell you. She wanted to tell him what she knew about Inhumans. After all, his authority and tactics appeared far more trustworthy than any government agency or covert organization she'd encountered. Naruto did not say anything. Instead, a golden doorway appeared behind him. If it's important, say it inside. His words resonated as he passed through the portal and disappeared. Daisy paused. She gritted her teeth and followed him. It's simply a luminous portal. Golden, shiny, mysterious. Not terrifying, right? She walked through. Minutes later, the sword team charged into the chamber, apprehending the remaining Inhumans. Each of them had been afflicted by hive bugs. They needed to be isolated and quarantined to avoid further spread. Daisy felt woozy as a result of the teleportation. She was suddenly in the hall of a clandestine Inhuman assembly. She then stood inside what appeared to be a slick, high-tech office. Mr. Black Devil, do you know that these Inhumans are planning something big? Their end goal is to rule the Earth, Daisy stated with a chuckle. Even if the God they believed in turned out to be nothing in front of you. She suddenly froze in the middle of her statement. Her jaw dropped slowly. Her eyes widened, and she slapped her hand across her mouth. Before her, the Black Devil's black armor shimmered. The biological plating moved and withdrew, similar to how living skin peels away. Underneath was not a faceless enforcer of darkness, but Naruto Uzumaki, a brilliance known throughout America, no, the world. A recognized U.S. partner, Department of Defense, the man who had purchased Oscorp. The genius behind numerous breakthroughs, he was the Black Devil. Daisy was surprised for a second. She frantically shielded her eyes. Maybe I was wrong. I didn't see anything. Mr. Black Devil, please don't kill me, she exclaimed, terrified. Naruto gazed at her with amusement. How do you know I'd kill you just for seeing my face? He inquired, his voice tinged with teasing interest. Daisy's voice quivered. The movies say, you can't look behind someone's mask, or you're doomed. It's always like that in spy thrillers. She looked like she was going to cry. Naruto chuckled. This girl may be more interesting than he anticipated. Naruto couldn't help but be amused by Daisy's scared demeanor. He had not anticipated a SHIELD agent to trust what she saw in the movies. No, Mr. Black Devil, I swear, I'll never reveal your identity to anyone. Daisy was on the edge of tears. Her original plan had been straightforward. Tell the Black Devil what she knew about the Inhumans' conspiracy, and then use his immense strength to demolish their plans. That was the plan. But who could have expected that the Black Devil would take off his mask without a second thought, only to discover that it wasn't even a mask at all? Unlike Stark's flashy suits of armor, the Black Devil appeared to be something altogether different. Tony Stark encased flesh in steel. The individual in question was wrapping steel around something else. Something more foreign. Something more inhuman. Daisy's thoughts suddenly discovered a connection. A vague remembrance flashed across her mind, one of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s most sensitive files. It depicted a major global cyber attack that occurred 4 years ago. An attack that had ripped through the layers of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s secrets like tissue paper. Daisy pointed to Naruto with closed eyes and shaking voice. You're the one from 4 years ago. That Naruto Uzumaki is this Naruto Uzumaki. Most people would not realize the significance of what she just stated. But Naruto did. That's right. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, he responded, turning his head slightly and looking at her calmly. So, are you ready? No, I'm not ready at all. Look, I can forget. I swear, I can pretend none of this ever happened. Daisy was mumbling furiously. You've got crazy advanced tech, right? You can erase my memory or something. An unknown force caused Daisy to open her eyes. And she found herself staring into Naruto's eyes. She froze. That is it. This was how it ended. Will he vaporize her with a burst of energy? Or take a standard approach? Bullet to the head? Or, worse, would he kidnap her and keep her as a research subject in a subterranean lab for all eternity? Daisy's mind was flooded with terrible thoughts in the span of a heartbeat. But the deadly blow never arrived. When she dared to look, she discovered Naruto casually seated in a high-tech chair, looking at her with faint amusement. Please take a seat, Miss Daisy, Naruto replied kindly. She hesitated, but eventually obliged, sitting across from him, tight as a strung bowstring. So, Miss Daisy. Naruto's crimson visor glittered. After witnessing our strength firsthand, are you interested in joining us? Daisy, despite her frightened state, recognized the essential word in his speech. We? She echoed hesitantly. Mr. Uzumaki, do you mean, you've got a team? Naruto threw out a quiet laugh before snapping his fingers. A massive holographic display appeared between them. Daisy's eyes widened with surprise. On the screen, she could see her boss, Director Coulson, in the midst of an operation. A bunch of mutants was causing havoc in another location. Then, telecom logs from everyday folks flashed past. The sheer extent of the surveillance astounded her. Daisy's voice was shaky as she inquired, "Do you monitor all of these things?" But then something considerably more astonishing appeared. Sword's floating space headquarters, a shining sword-shaped station suspended silently in orbit, ringed by a web of Starlink satellites that never slept and monitored the entire Earth. Naruto handed an electronic invitation over the table to her. Daisy glanced down as a reaction. A sleek circular insignia appeared on the screen, stabbed in the center by an upside-down sword. "Sentient World Observation and Response Division," she said aloud, tripping over the term. "Sword." Daisy looked up and met Naruto's eyes. "So when you said we, you meant..." Naruto nodded. "Yes, with shield crumbling, the Earth needs a new force. One powerful enough to deal with the threats coming our way." As he talked, the screen began to show video footage of Sword's elite strike teams, the Sword Unit and the Sharp Blade Squad, neutralizing threats all throughout the world. The climactic scene in which Naruto battles Galactus freezes. Even in hologram form, the epic conflict projected unfathomable power. Daisy's hair stood on end. The sheer size of it startled her. That wasn't just a superhero conflict. That was cosmic warfare. "Why me?" she whimpered, clutching the electronic invitation. Naruto stared at her directly. "Because you're new to S.H.I.E.L.D., uncorrupted. Because I see the tremendous potential inside you. You only need proper guidance. Join Sword," he said, his voice resonating. "And you'll witness things you never even imagined." Daisy felt the air shift once his words faded. In an instant, she was no longer in that high-tech chamber. She was back, standing in her own station. Dazed. For a while, she believed it was all a hallucination. But as she looked down and saw the electronic invitation still in her fingers, she realized it was real. "Sword," Daisy said to herself. "I need Inhumans. Lots of Inhumans." Hive was boiling with wrath in Baron Strucker's clandestine underground laboratory. Since annihilating the majority of Hive's parasite swarms, Naruto's strength had dropped dramatically. To regain his former might, he needed supplements, living hosts. "Please, calm down. Our capture teams are already in motion," Baron Strucker rushed to reassure him. "Very soon, you'll have a fresh batch of Inhumans delivered to your side." Hive's expression did not change. His voice seemed cold and mechanical. "I need them now." Then, without warning, a cloud of small insects sprang from Hive's body and flew across the lab, and into the scientists working inside. In the blink of an eye, their bodies were emptied of life and energy. They began to wilt, collapsing like puppets with their strings severed, and eventually dissolving into ash. The gray dust from their corpses ascended like a tempest, swirling and settling in every area of the laboratory. Baron Strucker quickly covered his nose and mouth with a shaky palm, regret washing over him. Bringing this god to Earth had been a huge mistake. Hive appeared visibly revived, his vigor somewhat restored by the new sacrifice. He carefully shifted his sight to Baron Strucker. Strucker shuddered at the weight of that stare. My lord, when do we launch our attack on Uzumaki Industries?" He blurted out, desperate to avoid being Hive's next meal. "Are you doubting your faith, my loyal disciple?" Hive said coldly. "Are you no longer willing to become a part of me?" No, revered god, I am eager to be one with you," Strucker replied, feigning a smile. "But I know I'm still useful to you. Once the plan is complete, then you may assimilate me." Hive snorted with contempt. He didn't believe any of it. If he hadn't needed Strucker's network, he would have absorbed him right away. A tiny insect shot out of Hive's body, hovering over Strucker's head before sinking into his skin, much to the Baron's distress. He could feel it. Something creeping through his circulation, surfing his veins, swimming freely inside him like a predator in an aquarium. "Ah!" Strucker couldn't help but shout. "Don't even think about double-crossing me," Hive stated sternly. "Or you'll learn what it truly means to become nothing." With that, Hive turned to leave the facility, his coat billowing behind him like a storm. Strucker stood frightened, watching him leave, His face was paler. Regret gnawed on his insides. He didn't sign up for this. This was hardly the god he expected to awaken. However, it was too late now. There was no going back. He had chosen this route and now had to follow it till the finish. Daisy stood alone on a deserted area of land, far from the city lights, clutching the digital invitation Naruto had given her. The ground was dry and fractured. There are no signs of life. There are no signs of people. There are no traces of anything. But Daisy had already made her decision. She would join Sword not simply because Naruto had said so, but because she genuinely believed in their objective. She has never advocated for government control. SHIELD may have pulled her from the periphery, but she never felt like she belonged. Her displeasure with their tight protocols and blind adherence to antiquated technology was palpable. Sword was different. They felt like they were rebelling on purpose. Daisy glanced at her wristwatch. There was 1 minute until the time mentioned on the invitation. Typical, she mumbled. Doesn't matter how fancy you are, still can't be on time. She kicked at a tuft of dry grass, frustrated. Boom. A huge roar pierced the air above her, causing her heart to race into her throat. She looked up and saw a strange-looking ship descending from the clouds. Its huge engines generated gales of wind that swept in all directions. Daisy staggered and almost lost her equilibrium. She peered at the landing craft's sparkling surface, which reflected the dim sky. "Show off," she said, hiding her eyes with one palm. The ship landed in front of her, hissing with pressurized air. Its ramp extended softly, silently luring her inside. "Hello," she said as she got into the yacht. No response. Only a gentle echo of her own words and the mechanical buzz of alien technology. She wandered deeper in, curiosity overpowering caution. The building was full with odd devices, screens, panels, and stuff she couldn't even begin to comprehend. "There's no crew, no welcome party." Daisy frowned. "Seriously? You invite someone to join your top-secret organization and just leave the ship empty?" A calm female voice resonated through the chamber. "Miss Daisy, please take a seat. We are preparing for immediate departure." Daisy screamed and jumped as a red holographic figure appeared before her, hovering inches away from her face. "I am Sword's onboard AI. You may call me Red Queen," the figure said sweetly. Daisy clutched her chest, attempting to slow her racing heartbeat. "You're saying this ship is unmanned?" "That is correct, and as I mentioned, we're departing now." The voice rang in her ears like a devil's whisper. Daisy barely had time to secure herself in the nearest seat before the ship began to rise. She screamed again. She'd never flown in an autonomous ship before. She certainly did not expect her first ride to begin like this. Daisy stated she had never been through anything like this in her life. She was currently aboard an unmanned shuttle, soaring through Earth's atmosphere before docking with a massive starship. Dazed and overwhelmed, she wandered through long corridors lined with strange, alien technology. Daisy eventually made it to the heart of Sword's headquarters, the Central Command. "Looks like you made the right choice," Naruto smirked, noting Daisy's stunned expression. Daisy stammered as she tried to process everything. "So, I'm officially a part of Sword now. Aren't you worried that I might leak your identity or spill top-secret info?" Naruto's V-shaped visor flashed with red light. "My policy has always been, trust those I use, and never use those I don't trust." He paused, then added with confidence, "And I know you're not that kind of person, Miss Johnson." God knows what kind of person I really am, Daisy thought silently, but she kept her expression neutral. Still, Naruto's words hit a nerve. Although SHIELD had recruited her, she was never truly trusted. Most of her missions were minor and easily expendable. But Uzumaki did more than just accept her, he believed in her. Mr. Uzumaki," she said awkwardly, picking a name to address him. "So, what exactly is my mission? I mean, you probably know I'm pretty good at reconnaissance." As soon as the words left her mouth, Daisy felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment. "Good at reconnaissance? Daisy, you suck at everything else." "You don't have to worry about that," Naruto reassured. "A warm and welcoming family awaits you here. And, I'll help you find your real parents." Daisy's head shot up in shock, her eyes fixed on Naruto's glowing red visor. "Wait, what? You're serious. Mr. Uzumaki, do you really mean that? Absolutely, Naruto said calmly. With a wave of his hand, a holographic screen materialized before her, displaying the image of a refined middle-aged East Asian woman. Is this my mother? Daisy whispered, staring at the image, her mind racing. She had always suspected she had Eastern heritage. Just as she was about to ask more questions, a voice echoed through the entire base, an urgent message from Skynet. Strike team, prepare for deployment. Atlantis forces are initiating an invasion. Atlantis. Daisy was momentarily stunned. Wasn't that supposed to be something out of fairy tales? The doors burst open, and a squad of costumed heroes marched into the room, geared up for battle. Hey, you must be the newbie, said one with a friendly grin. Peter Parker. Most folks call me Spider-Man. James Barnes. Codename Winter Soldier, said another, nodding coolly. Yo, I'm Pietro, and you're really, ow, sis, why'd you hit me? Apologies, Wanda said with a polite smile. I'm Wanda. That's my brother. He tends to get ahead of himself. Another said calmly. You may call me the Mandarin. I'm Captain Supreme, Steve Rogers, said a man in a modified Stars and Stripes uniform. Daisy stood frozen, wide-eyed. This group, these were some of the most classified individuals in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s archives, most of them existing only in redacted reports or whispered rumors. And now she was standing among them. Strike Team. That was the name she caught. So this was the elite unit of S.W.O.R.D. feeling their collective gaze. Daisy hesitated, then pointed at herself, incredulous. Me. 3 seconds later, she had accepted it. Through her semi-reliable powers, she had stumbled into becoming part of an elite superhero squad. Somehow, this was her life now. Meanwhile, for the citizens of New York, today was just another quiet, uneventful day. No alien invasions, no catastrophic battles, maybe a few superpowered scuffles here and there, but it was run for the course. Residents had long grown used to having augmented humans in their midst. In Manhattan, the city's elite went about their routines, chatting about real estate purchases and new cars, sipping lattes in their high-rise offices. Then someone pointed out the window, his voice anxious. Hey, guys, what the hell is that? Out on the water, an entire army of armored oceanic beings advanced toward the shore in precise formation. Anything floating on the sea was torn apart as they passed. Valiant warriors of Atlantis, a commanding voice sounded out from a rising sea vessel. It's time we taught those arrogant land dwellers a lesson. Massive underwater warships surfaced one after another, racing toward Manhattan with terrifying speed. Armored Atlantean troops riding sharks and dolphins emerged from the ocean, yelling battle cries as they rushed the coastline. Boom! A gigantic energy beam exploded from one of the naval turrets, ripping straight through a skyscraper. The Atlanteans had arrived. The conflict between land and sea had begun. Inside Avengers Tower, Tony Stark stared in total horror as squads of armored Atlanteans marched out from the ocean depths and onto land. Towering undersea warships loomed in the background, mighty boats that destroyed every idea Stark had about what lay beneath the surface of Earth's oceans. He had always knew the globe was big, but this. JARVIS, status report. Tony's voice was taut with fear. Sir, the entities identifying themselves as Atlanteans have launched simultaneous assaults on coastal cities across the United States, JARVIS answered, as a holographic map flickered to life before Stark's eyes. Every coastal point on the globe was under attack, with catastrophe unfolding in real time. Freaking fantastic, Stark said under his breath. What the hell do they want? Namor the Submariner hovered high above the turmoil in New York, his voice thundering and full of righteous rage. His soldiers, thousands of them, stood ready behind him, each wearing specially crafted underwater armor. Today, we teach these arrogant, short-sighted surface dwellers a lesson they'll never forget. Namor said, his words ringing over the battlefield. The oceans belong to Atlantis. We shall flood the coastal regions of the surface world and claim them as our buffer zone. He raised his golden trident aloft. If they refuse to yield, then they shall fall beneath the tide, crushed beneath the iron and blood of conquest. The Atlantean troops' cheers sounded like a smashing wave. Their cries filled the air, weapons raised in undying fealty to their monarch. FWOOOSH. A blazing orange bolt of energy slashed through the air, just missing Namor by a hair's breadth. Tony Stark appeared like a flash of light, repulsor cannon activated and smoking. Namor's instincts kicked in immediately. His reflexes, honed over millennia of warfare, sent him veering aside just as the blast passed by. He turned, golden trident lifted, his gaze fixed on the armored figure hovering nearby. "Are you here to challenge me, you foolish surface dweller?" Namor's voice was steel wrapped in thunder. Tony's visor shone as he smirked. "I don't usually spar with seafood, but for you, I'll make an exception." With a click, Stark's shoulder-mounted missile launcher pivoted and unleashed a barrage of micro-rockets, each aimed for the men below. The subsequent blasts rocked the battlefield. Atlantean troops were scattered in all directions, with armor damaged, weapons snapped, and formations in disarray. "I told you," Tony said coldly. "You're nothing but overgrown shrimp with bad tempers. Go home." Namor's eyes narrowed. "Let's see if you're still smiling after this." He vanished in a swirl of speed before reappearing near Tony and slamming his trident into the side of his armor. The golden weapon crackled with ancient energy, and the collision sent Tony flying through the air. Tony spun in midair, igniting his thrusters to full power. In an instant, he changed course and returned to Namor like a golden comet. Namor reacted swiftly, spinning his trident with unbelievable precision, its three-pronged tips aimed squarely at Tony's chest. Tony's eyes expanded inside the HUD as alarms went off. "Danger. Fatal strike trajectory detected. JARVIS, disable the damn warning klaxon." Stark demanded. "I hate that thing." He raised his repulsors and shot. Boom. The orange blast met with the spinning trident in midair, causing a shockwave that illuminated the sky. Down below, the Atlantean warriors regrouped, their weapons now trained upward. Countless beams of blue energy flew up in a hail of plasma bolts, forcing Tony to duck and weave through the crossfire. "I'm getting really tired of you guys and your glowsticks," Tony mumbled, twisting out of the way of a near miss. Suddenly, a voice cracked through his communications. "Tony, we're here." Tony grinned. "Well, finally, some good news." Reed Richards and the Fantastic Four swooped onto the battlefield aboard their latest aircraft, designed for high-speed combat. Johnny Storm was the first to leap out, igniting into the burning human torch as he fell. "Barbecue seafood, my favorite," Johnny said, sparking a shower of flames. The sea-born soldiers wailed as they withered from the extreme heat, unaccustomed to the dry, searing air of the surface world. Their armor twisted and their weapons melted. THOOM. The ground trembled as the thing sprang from the jet, landing with a seismic thud. His gigantic stone hands ripped through Atlantean helmets like paper, sending troops flying. Without their aquatic masks, the warriors began gasping helplessly, deprived of the life-sustaining water they required to breathe. Reed stretched his limbs to protect civilians, and Sue Storm created force shields to deflect approaching blasts. Above, Tony was back in his element, whirling through the air with renewed zeal. With the Fantastic Four here, the odds had changed. He used his repulsors to lock on targets and blast away at Atlantean warriors like a game of whack-a-mole. "Come on," Tony cried over the intercom. "Is that the best you soggy sea dwellers can do?" Exclamation mark. "You bring a war to our shores and this is what you deliver." Exclamation mark quote. But, as he said it, zop. A red blast of electricity struck him unexpectedly. The air sizzled as Tony's suit was bathed in crimson light. When the beam faded, Tony was in midair, his armor burnt and sparking. Smoke curled from the injuries on his chestplate and shoulders. "Armor damage at 60%, JARVIS said coldly. Tony's smile was gone, his expression stiffened. The war was far from done. And Atlantis wasn't finished yet. Even Reed's superior aircraft was not spared. A blazing crimson stream of energy engulfed the ship as Susan attempted to shield it with her force fields. The Atlantean battleships, however, had much too much firepower. Her energy shield broke like a frail eggshell. Boom. The ship received a direct strike. Its facade has melted away, revealing exposed wires and smoldering machinery. The entire craft spun out of control, leaving black smoke trailing behind as it crashed to the earth. Reed and Susan, while resilient, were now on the battlefield, fighting wave after wave of Atlantean forces. While they were individually stronger than their opponents, their sheer number was overwhelming. "I'm coming, sis." Johnny Storm, burning and enraged, flew across the heavens. The immense heat radiating from his body engulfed the surrounding Atlanteans, their armor crackling as they collapsed in heaps. Namor hovered above, passively watching as the so-called Avengers Alliance struggled with his forces. "Initiate tsunami shockwave." Namor's voice was calm but unsettling. Several Atlantean warships roared to life deep beneath the waves near Manhattan. Scarlet lights burst across their hulls. The ocean began to retreat abnormally before churning, as if boiling from within. Waves crashed heavily against Manhattan's banks. Then the red lights disappeared. It was replaced by a towering, apocalyptic wall of water. The tsunami raced toward New York's Manhattan area, large enough to devour skyscrapers. "Sir, we've detected a massive tsunami heading straight for New York." Jarvis' voice rang out quickly inside Stark's helmet. He was still fighting off waves of Atlantean footmen. What the hell do these Atlantean fishheads want? ? Tony yelled, slamming another soldier onto the ground. He shot into the sky and saw the sky-darkening wave approaching the city. "Reed, they're launching a damn tsunami." Stark's voice sounded tense. Reed, who was stretching his body like a live rubber band to smash an Atlantean's helmet, paused in mid-motion. "What did you say?" "No time to explain. Grab on, I've got an idea." Tony flew over, hovering just over Reed. The scientist extended his elastic arms and tightly gripped Stark's waist. The strange couple shot aloft. "Hey Reed, you know this pose is wildly inappropriate, right?" Tony said, looking down at Reed's hold. "Trust me, this gives me a better sense of security," Reed replied without hesitation. "Unlike you, I don't wear a suit that could survive a missile barrage." Still holding to each other, they flew back toward Avengers Tower. "Oh man, this is getting wild," Peter Parker said, stunned as he watched the carnage develop on the hollow screens aboard one of SWORD's observation vessels. The footage showed Stark and Reed mid-flight, clinging to each other in an awkward position. "Kids shouldn't watch stuff like this," Mandarin stated dryly, shielding Pietro's eyes. "Hey, that's discrimination. Just because I'm younger doesn't mean I don't deserve full trauma access," Pietro exclaimed, squirming. Daisy raised her eyebrow at the group's antics. "Aren't we supposed to be preparing for war? We're on the verge of a major crisis and you're all acting like it's a sitcom." "Daisy," Wanda said softly beside her, "you'll get used to them. This is how they are." Wanda and Daisy had soon bonded. As the only two women on the recon team, they had formed a sisterly bond. Daisy loved Wanda's calm assurance, despite the fact that she was younger. "Enough." Steve Rogers clasped his hands to get the team's attention again. "We all know what's at stake. Our job is to drag that fashion victim who is too rich and old back into the ocean where he belongs." Everyone glanced at the huge screen that showed Namor floating in the air in his dazzling brilliant armor. "Got it," the whole crew said at the same time. But before that, Steve added, looking at the huge tsunami countdown that was now flashing on the screen, "We have something even more important to do. Get that tsunami to go away." Stark and Reed were deep in strategic meetings at Avengers Tower. A holographic screen showed how many seconds were left until impact. Tony stated, "There's only one choice left, the Galactus-class destruction array. But it takes time to charge, and we won't get there in time for the first wave. The best thing to do is use it to stop the ones that come after." He ran his fingers through his hair, which was clearly making him angry. Reed's voice was quiet, "But that's all we have, right? This tsunami wasn't merely a natural calamity, it was a militarized disaster. Every second that passed meant more lives lost." That knowledge weighed so heavily on Reed that he lost his cool. "We've done all we can," Tony stated in a low voice. "We've already saved more people than most would even try to. Don't be hard on yourself. Let's hope that's enough," Reed said softly, his eyes fixated on the countdown clock that was ticking away like a death knell. A huge tsunami came crashing down on New York, rising over the skyscrapers like the anger of a god who wanted to get back at someone. People in the city were scared and screamed as they ran to higher land to get away from the wall of water that was coming. Inside a tall building, Brotherhood agents were giving Magneto information. "Magneto, our sources say that Colonel Stryker is in New York. There are rumors that he's working with Uzumaki Industries to make a new weapon just for fighting mutants. This united assault with Atlantis wasn't just about taking over. It was also about causing havoc. People were becoming more and more angry with mutants. Now that Stryker's plan had support from Congress, things looked bad for mutants in the future. Magneto, as the head of the Brotherhood, couldn't let that happen. He wanted a future where mutants were in charge, not scared. Forget about Uzumaki Industries for now. Find that bastard Stryker," Magneto remarked coldly. "Get rid of the source of this threat. With Atlantis attacking the surface, any news about mutants will be lost in the chaos. It's time to gather our strength." "Yes, sir." His minions quickly got to work carrying out the command. At the same time, the first wave of the tsunami hit and destroyed the Statue of Liberty. "Oh my God, the Statue of Liberty is missing. What are those blue-skinned freaks doing? The whole city is going down." People in cities all throughout the country were appalled as they watched the livestream. Cities that weren't on the shore sensed the fear too. How could anyone live through this end of the world? In New York, several folks just fell to the ground, asking for help with their eyes closed and hands clasped. But God didn't answer. She was a woman in red. "Wanda, are you sure you can stop something this big?" The Mandarin inquired calmly, looking at the girl next to him, who looked weak. Wanda smiled softly and said, "How will I ever know if I don't try?" A surge of chaotic magic came out of her body, and a deep red light began to shine from her. The air around her twisted and shook. She was no longer merely the Scarlet Witch. She was something more. As soon as she raised her hands, every Avenger on the ground felt a huge, raw pressure in the air. Even the Atlantean warriors stopped for a moment to look up at the woman who was now hovering high above. Wanda was in the middle of a spatial distortion, her face hidden by a red light. It looked like reality was bending around her. What is that? She's amazing. Is she a person at all?" Below, mouths dropped. Namor squinted his eyes upward. He thought about assaulting, but someone was watching over her. "A guy. Go." When Wanda whispered, a huge wave of chaotic magic came out of her body and rushed toward the tsunami. The tsunami was already touching the top of Stark Tower. The impact was coming soon. People inside closed their eyes and waited for death, but it never came. Something amazing happened instead. The wave stopped. It didn't fall down. It just stayed there, frozen in the middle of a surge. There was a red glow that sparkled on its surface. More waves crashed into the wall of magic behind it, but they were stopped and held in place. The stress had made Wanda's cheeks pallid. She shook her fingers as she tried to hold back the ocean. The Mandarin yelled, "You nailed it." The 10 rings on his hands glowed with a bluish-white radiance. A surge of icy energy shot out of his hands and hit the stopped tsunami. A shockwave of freezing air surrounded the wave, and huge crystals of ice spread like wildfire. The water started to freeze. "Wow," the Human Torch yelled, shocked. "What the hell are you two?" The whole tsunami, which was once a huge force of nature, became a beautiful ice sculpture. In the frozen waters, whole ships could be seen flipping over, like bugs trapped in amber. Survivors gazed at the incredible sight in the buildings. "We're alive, what just happened?" The wave turned to ice. "Who the hell are these people?" Their shock transformed into cheers. Relief. Elation. But Namor, flying high in the sky, sensed something else: pressure. These newcomers, especially the one who just froze a tsunami, were a threat. A real one. He held up his golden trident and pointed it right at them. "Are you here to stop me too?" he questioned in a chilly voice. A spinning red, white, and blue blur answered him. "Get back to your ocean, you damn fish," Captain Supreme shouted. The shield, which had the Umbrella Corporation logo on it, hit the golden trident in a clash that shook the whole city. The real fight had begun when sparks flashed and shockwaves spread. Namor floated in the air, his face serious as he stared at Captain Supreme, Steve Rogers. Namor learned everything he needed to know from the little conversation they had just had. This man was not a normal enemy. He was either as good at fighting and as strong as Namor, or perhaps better. Namor was even more disturbed by how much Rogers looked like someone from his past. Namor muttered, "I don't care who you are," and pointed his golden trident at Rogers, making it buzz with power. "But if you get in my way, I'll punish you." Rogers held his shield up to his chest and said in a clear, cutting voice, "You smell like salt and rot, sea creature. This land isn't yours to ruin. Crawl back to your dark depths. You're courting death." Namor yelled as he shot himself like a golden cannonball at Rogers, his trident glowing with deadly energy. Bang! When the golden trident hit the vibranium shield, a huge shockwave spread out from the point of impact. The wave of energy pushed down dozens of Atlantis warriors, and their armor broke as they fell. A lot of them wouldn't get back up. Before the others could say anything, Atlantis foot troops on the ground raised their energy rifles and fired a volley of shining blasts at Rogers. But just in time. "Hey! Dirty blue sardines! Please stop making the mainland smell bad." Spider-Man swung in, and his 8 mechanical arms flared out in a devastating arc. He started killing soldiers with deadly accuracy, and his claws cut through Atlantean armor like paper. The Winter Soldier behind him started shooting. His high-powered rifle ripped into groups of enemy soldiers with every shot. The plasma fire flashed in all directions, lighting up the battlefield like a death laser show. 2 people were floating above it all, Wanda Maximoff and the Mandarin. Every one of their attacks was terrible. They became real reapers of the battlefield thanks to chaos magic and alien ring technology. Dozens fell at every move. They couldn't be stopped. Daisy Johnson sat in a support plane far above, shocked, and stared at the holographic images of the combat. Rogers put her in charge of support and logistics when she joined the Sharp Blade squad. This kept her safe and out of the action. But what she saw below made her shiver. She thought the Sharp Blade squad would do secret operations like silent killings and tactical sabotage, not go through armies like living superweapons. And yet, there they were, running in headfirst and wrecking everything. Each and every one of them gave off a terrible amount of strength. The Mandarin's calm demeanor and unassuming grin had just turned him into a walking weapon of mass destruction. Wanda, her buddy, had literally stopped a tsunami with her bare hands and sorcery. Just thinking about it made Daisy's arms break out in goosebumps. Could I be like them one day? She thought. Naruto had claimed it was possible, but only if she worked hard and stayed focused. She made her fists tight with determination. A bright red energy beam rushed toward Rogers out of nowhere, swift and lethal. His communicator went off with emergency notifications. Energy signature that could be dangerous is coming. The outfit Spider-Man wore also lit up with warning lights. The red beam cut through a number of towers, melting steel and glass like butter until it got to Rogers. Perfect timing, Rogers replied calmly as he raised his shield. Mandarin, Wanda, take care of the sea ships. Spider-Man, Bucky, we hold Namor here. The crimson laser hit Rogers' shield and then ceased. Not even a scratch. Rogers didn't even blink. He stood steadfast like a fortress, protecting not only himself but also Spider-Man. Wow, Cap, your shield is unbreakable, Spider-Man said in wonder. You're damn right it is. It's tougher than your fancy spider suit, Rogers said, still calm under pressure. Bucky stood like an impenetrable wall next to his friend, blocking lingering energy blasts with his prosthetic arm. Wanda and the Mandarin flew up into the air, going directly for the coast where the real Atlantis army was forming. Rows and rows of elite soldiers came out of the water wearing shiny blue armor. Huge warships erupted from the ocean behind them and sent incandescent waves of energy toward Manhattan. The Statue of Liberty has already sunk into the ocean. Her famous torch, not a trace left behind. The Mandarin said to Wanda, one each, almost joyfully, as if he were getting ready to share dessert. Wanda grinned and said, no problem. Her eyes were burning red. The air around her was full of chaos magic. One of the huge ships under the water twisted and shrank in an instant because of the weight of magic that changed reality. It shrank, twisted, and squished into a single cube that was the size of a suitcase. The Mandarin's 10 rings glowed with power in many colors, including fire, frost, gravity, magnetism, and particle disruption. He led forth a storm of attacks that turned warriors into mist and ships into molten wreckage. One step behind, little girl. He laughed as he blew up another ship. Oh, you're on, Wanda said. 2 more Atlantean battleships were quickly consumed by swirling red storms, which turned them into useless metal shells. The warriors who lived in Atlantis yelled and shot in desperation below them, but neither the Mandarin nor Wanda were hurt. They danced through the air, weapons from stories that came to life. At that moment, the troops of Atlantis, who had once been proud, began to feel something new. Hopelessness. Wanda and the Mandarin were attacking Atlantis's forces non-stop, and they were being burned to death off the coast of Manhattan. One after the next, huge underwater battleships were destroyed, like cheap scrap metal. Namor was in the middle of a fight with Rogers and Spider-Man when he suddenly heard scared reports coming through his earpiece. His face twisted in anger. Raw, his golden trident divided into 2 shining projections with a roar, blocking assaults from both Rogers and Spider-Man at the same time. Namor used the recoil to his advantage and blasted backward, sending him flying toward the water. Those soldiers, the best fighters in Atlantis, were being killed off. Hey, Golden Mackerel, you think you can just run away and we'll let you off the hook? Spider-Man shot a webline and swung through the skyscrapers, hunting Namor like a predator. Namor was aware of what a mackerel was. He had lived on land before, so he knew all the funny names these land dwellers used. And now he really hated this annoying, loud-mouthed Spider-Man. The youngster kept chatting the whole time they were fighting. Get lost, Namor yelled, swinging his bright golden trident. A burst of pure energy shot out of it and hit Spider-Man, who was chasing it. Whoa there, the mackerel is mad now, Spider-Man said as he dodged the attack in the air. But hey, if you wanted to stay peaceful, why did you invade the land? Being a fish means you have to do things right. Iron Spider mode turned on, and 8 shiny mechanical legs suddenly appeared on his back. He used his webs to launch himself straight at Namor and drove the metal arms down like spears. When Namor's trident hit the metal limbs, it made a loud shockwave that broke windows for blocks around. People who were still inside the structure screamed. But Namor didn't care anymore. He didn't have time to deal with Spider-Man. He had to stop those 2 monsters from utterly destroying his troops. He pushed his mutant talents to the maximum and became a golden streak that shot through the sky as he smashed through the huge tsunami wall that Wanda and the Mandarin had built. He blinked and Spider-Man lost sight of him. Wow, that flying fish is fast. Okay, I'll call you Turbo Tuna now, Spider-Man exclaimed as he ran after him. At the same time, Rogers killed the last of the Atlantean footmen and jumped onto a Quinjet, which flew him to the sea. When Namor eventually got to the front lines, he was horrified by what he saw. The bodies of his best soldiers were all over the water. Some were turned into ice statues. Some were burned so badly that they couldn't be recognized. And it all made him think of one cursed land dweller food, grilled fish. Even worse, the glowing red woman and the smug middle-aged guy who started this massacre were still causing destruction. Battleships were falling apart like toys, and their burning debris was floating on the water. Namor quickly counted in his head. More than half of his fleet was gone. He yelled, "No," and the waves shook with his rage. Since he became king of Atlantis, he had never been so embarrassed. 3 huge water pillars rose around him, twisting and turning with elemental power. He was the king of the whole ocean, not just Atlantis. He could only use all of his power near the sea. And what now? He yelled, "You all will die," and sent spear-sharp streams of water toward Wanda and the Mandarin. The Mandarin's face got serious. He could feel the violent energy coming from Namor like a tidal wave. Wanda also stopped attacking and focused completely on defense. Namor's water strikes and their combined energy fought each other, making steam rise into the air. Even though the 2 stood their ground, the attack didn't cease. It came like a monsoon, never-ending, angry, and unrelenting. Namor's strength never ran out as long as there remained ocean. He said again, "You will all die." His voice was full of rage. At that moment, the Quinjet with Rogers, Spider-Man, and Bucky flew into view. Mandarin and Wanda, fall back right away. It's time to use the secret weapon, Rogers yelled over the radio. They looked at each other. Without thinking, they fired one last volley to stop Namor's next attack, then flew up into the sky. You think running will save you? Namor's voice was getting crazier and crazier. His army was in shambles. His spirit was in pain. The sea rose up under his command and became a huge shark, snapping its teeth and jumping at the two people who were running away. Rogers turned to Doom inside the jet. Are you sure your device will work? He inquired, his voice getting tense. I've done the math. It's bulletproof, Doom said without hesitation. Good. Then start it. Now. Blue energy filled the jet's power core. The weapon that Doom had put on the plane started to buzz and charge up quickly. Namor stopped in midair. Something felt bad. His instincts kicked in. It felt dry, and it was never a good indication when you were in charge of the sea. Doom said inside the Quinjet, the energy index has reached 80%, and beads of sweat were running down his brow. And it wasn't just Doom. Even Captain Supreme, who could last forever, was starting to feel it. His skin was sticky and his mouth was dry. It was just too hot. Doom, are you sure this Atlantean annihilation device of yours is going to work? Pietro said, his voice cracking from the heat. He thought he was going to die in the plane. Energy index now at 90%, Doom said without looking away from the screen, completely dismissing Pietro's misgivings. He was focused on the charging sequence. The item in question was an energy heater that Doom had made just for fighting Atlanteans. It was easy to understand. It released excruciating heat when it got enough energy. When it was at full power, the temperature in its center might reach tens of thousands of degrees. Even though this Quinjet had been significantly upgraded with insulation and thermal shielding, the people within were still in pain. Very badly. Almost there, Doom said as the indicator reached 95%. A brief look of cruel pleasure crossed his face. Let's find out what this thing can really do to them. He hit the red button without thinking. Bang! A wave of hot energy shot out from the bottom of the Quinjet. Namor was the first to be hit. He was still in the air. It felt like the sun had come down on him. As moisture quickly left his body, his skin broke and turned black. Every nerve was on fire with pain. Namor let out a deep scream and fell straight into the sea, which was his sole safe place. But the soldiers on the ground weren't as lucky. At first, they didn't notice that the water temperature had changed. Their bodies were underwater, so the slow rise in temperature didn't seem scary. But it was too late by the time they figured it out. The Quinjet's energy heater focused heat on one spot, making the ocean around it boil. As the sea roiled and frothing, huge clouds of steam shot up into the sky. The Atlantean troops floated hopelessly, their arms and legs going stiff and their skin burning. Their nervous systems were the first to die down, and their nerves burned away before they could even scream. They died slowly. Scary. The big warships that were under the sea didn't do any better. Their alloyed hulls started to twist, soften, and fall apart when they were exposed to heat that was beyond their wildest dreams. When the ship's internal systems broke down, every Atlantean on board turned to ash, as they were burned alive inside their own steel coffins. The Mandarin in the cockpit, who was feverishly using his ice ring to chill the inside, questioned, how much longer do we have to keep this going? We're going to cook ourselves in here. Almost done. Doom said quickly, looking back and forth between the data points and the infrared camera feed. Bodies were floating, a lot of them. The Atlantean army, which had once been proud, now covered the sea like a scarlet tide. Crabs, fish, squids, and even those altered deep-sea monsters all floated on the surface without moving. The fragrance of boiling seafood filled the air. It was now over for every Atlantean who had bragged about punishing the landwalkers. Daisy said, Doom, was this too much? As she looked at the slaughter through the hologram screen. Her voice shook. Doom didn't say anything. Instead, Rogers reached out and softly caressed her on the head. This is war, Daisy. A war between land and sea, he replied, his voice calm but heavy. If we hadn't done it, they would have done it to us one day. We were the first ones there. Daisy thought on those remarks in quiet. They were right, but they weren't easy to take in either. Okay, enough with the doom and gloom, Pietro abruptly said, trying to shift the mood. Turn off that heater already. Is it just me, or is this jet melting from the inside? The deck under their feet groaned just as he stated it. Then it broke. Then they fell apart. They were inside a Quinjet 1 second and falling the next. The plane had eventually given up after being pushed above its thermal limit. Its strengthened fuselage weakened, cracked, and came apart in the air, sending everyone plunging to the ground. Wanda and the Mandarin were watching, though. They jumped into action, utilizing telekinesis and wind constructions to grab their companions one by one and gently lower them to safety on the nearest coast. FFFFFT. Steve Rogers fell down on the sand and then started to chuckle. He laughed out loud. Ha 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 ha. The tension broke. The laughter spread quickly. Pietro, Daisy, and even Doom laughed as they lay on the sand, sweaty, alive, and happy. They had just finished a job that no one thought they could do. They had won. But far away, in the shadows of a remote island, Namor's anger burned hotter than the sea that had just eaten his army. His body, which was boiling and charred, fell to the ground. He punched the ground in anger, and the water around him swirled with his rage. "Rahhhhh," he yelled. The sea surged with him, making a huge storm that looked like it could engulf the sky. A whole military division. Gone. His fleet is gone. The pride of Atlantis is gone. Namor, the king of the seven seas, could hardly understand how deep this loss was. That's when he heard it. A voice that sounded like the edge of a knife sliding over ice. "We should work together." His eyes popped open. Someone or something had found him. They did not originate from the sea. The Avengers successfully neutralized yet another threat emerging from the depths of the ocean. Tony Stark regarded the situation with a sense of disbelief. They had unexpectedly achieved success. The individual clad in yellow-scaled armor, who referred to himself as the King of Atlantis, has disappeared without a trace. The waters surrounding New York were now strewn with the remains of Atlantean warriors. And a substantial amount of prepared seafood. The massive frozen tsunami that emerged near Manhattan has transformed into a remarkable phenomenon. What type of formidable force could halt an entire tidal wave in its tracks? To the general public, it was a remarkable sight to behold. However, for those in the know, it was a disconcerting discovery. Stark experienced a tightening of his nerves. The individuals referred to as superheroes, who appeared during the conflict. There was a greater number of them now than he had ever observed previously. The large aircraft that had traversed the sky with great speed. That made a significant impact. Are we merely insignificant? It seems all the recognition for the decisive action is attributed to those enigmatic figures. Reed Richards expressed his frustration. The concept persisted in his thoughts. Following their encounter with the silver-skinned entity known as the Herald of Galactus, Reed had started to draw comparisons between himself and these enigmatic new heroes. The results were not favorable. It was evident that he was unable to compete with them. Following the observation of the full-scale invasion of Atlantis, this sense of inadequacy became even more pronounced. The individuals, identified as the Avengers, seemed to occupy a role more akin to that of background participants. "Indeed, you have a point," Stark acknowledged with a slight shrug. "Reed, you understand the significance of our work here. The initiative we are developing has the potential to resolve global conflicts in a single decisive action. We are safeguarding our environment, and that must hold considerable value." "I hope you are correct," Reed said quietly, his eyes focused elsewhere. At this moment, Reed, Stark, and Dr. Banner were deeply engaged in advanced research, with plans that were already producing promising early breakthroughs. Should their project achieve success, it has the potential to transform the world, liberating superheroes from the perpetual cycle of conflict. "All right, team, let's maintain our focus and energy. It's time to get back to work." Stark clapped his hands, motivating his colleagues as he resumed his tasks. Mission report: Atlantis. In close proximity to New York, at a sword transport station, Doom and his team embarked on the esteemed shuttle en route to headquarters. Spider-Man was not present with them. He returned home to pay a visit to Aunt May. Mission report: we successfully repelled the invading Atlanteans with no casualties on our side. The only loss incurred was a modified Falcon jet along with the equipment on board. I recommend the immediate dispatch of a sword recovery team to ensure that classified technology does not fall into unauthorized hands, Rogers reported with composure. Mission acknowledged. Welcome back, Captain, announced Skynet from within the shuttle. The commander expresses great satisfaction with your achievements. You were instructed to return to headquarters and take your well-deserved leave. Absolutely. It's finally time for a well-deserved vacation. Pietro exclaimed. Mandarin, we are certainly going to sample that vintage liquor you mentioned. We will not cease our efforts until one of us is unable to continue, Mandarin stated with a hearty laugh, pleased to have found a suitable drinking companion. Hello Steve, do you have any plans for the break? I recently acquired that new video game you were interested in, Bucky said, smiling. Rogers placed a reassuring hand on Bucky's shoulder and offered a subtle smile. You were unable to surpass me previously. It is unlikely that you will succeed this time as well. The shuttle was filled with cheerful laughter. Daisy, may I inquire about your thoughts? Wanda directed her attention towards her. Me, Daisy inquired, pointing to herself with a hint of shyness. Upon confirming that Wanda was indeed inquiring, she responded, I am considering training. You are aware of the unpredictability of my powers. At times they activate when I least desire them to, and disappear when I require them the most. Her vibration-based powers exhibited a tendency to act unpredictably, often manifesting at the most inconvenient moments. I would be pleased to train with you, Wanda said, offering a warm smile. Daisy's eyes brightened. Having observed the formidable prowess of the Sharp Blades squad, she felt a strong urgency to enhance her own abilities. Doom, are you joining us? Mandarin is unveiling his esteemed collection of liquor. Pietro glanced at the quiet Doom. Me, HMPH, I will not be attending, Doom responded with an air of superiority. Doom maintained a complex relationship with alcohol, part apprehension, part intrigue. On one occasion, he observed Pietro and Mandarin consuming the beverage, evidently taking pleasure in the experience. He experienced a moment of breaking point and proceeded to take a sip. Upon entry, it felt as though one had transitioned into an entirely different realm. His complexion flushed, his thoughts became disoriented, and his once sharp intellect dulled. He had a faint recollection of having engaged in an activity. Profoundly uncomfortable, the memory continued to linger in his mind. However, he found himself yearning for that excitement once more. Indeed, Pietro regarded Doom with a confident smirk. As I anticipated, whenever they extended an invitation to Doom for a drink, he would decline. And consistently arrive punctually, precisely as planned. The issue at hand. Doom exhibited a notably low tolerance for alcohol. He became inebriated quickly and with considerable volume. What are you observing? Doom growled, noticing Pietro's self-satisfied expression. Absolutely nothing, Pietro teased. However, this time, we will not disclose the commencement of our drinking. The others erupted in laughter. The team successfully accomplished yet another challenging mission. It was now the moment to take a breath. Within a concealed stone chamber, entirely lacking any contemporary technology, everything was constructed from rough-hewn rock. There are no lights or wires, only cold stone and deeper shadows. Baron Strucker entered the room with a noticeable tremor. In the oppressive darkness, 3 pairs of eyes glimmered with a chilling, predatory intensity. One pair was associated with his so-called god. Another was associated with an individual adorned in a red cloak and donning a metallic helmet. The final figure was completely enveloped in radiant golden scaled armor. Each of their gazes fixed upon him with clear intensity. What is the current status of the Terrigen crystal? Hive inquired, his tone as cold as Arctic steel. My lord, it is prepared, Baron Strucker said, his knees almost giving way. The entities, indeed, the creatures, were profoundly unsettling beyond comprehension. Excellent, Hive acknowledged with a slight nod. Gentlemen, the moment is approaching. The inhuman mutant dominion is poised to ascend and claim its rightful position in this world. In recent weeks, Hive has actively pursued Magneto and Namor. He enticed them into his plan with significant assurances. Magneto would establish a sovereign homeland for all mutants. Namor would be permitted to extend his authority over the oceans without restriction. Both parties reached a consensus. However, Magneto, always strategic, maintained a sense of caution. He recognized that, even if the plan were to succeed, any peace established between mutants and inhumans would likely be temporary. Ultimately, a confrontation was inevitable. Tomorrow, Hive announced with a confident smile, you will all experience something remarkable. The entire world will undergo a transformation. Every individual will either become an inhuman or a mutant. In that moment, Baron Strucker experienced a profound chill that seized his very essence. He was overwhelmed by a sense of regret. What was the reason for his decision to bring Hive back to Earth? He aspired to achieve global dominance. Indeed, he aimed to revive the Hydra legacy. However, this was not the intended course of action. This situation was disorganized. What seems to be the issue? Hive's voice interrupted his contemplation. Are you reconsidering, Baron? Not at all, my lord, Strucker said with a deep bow, attempting to conceal the unease in his voice. Hive expressed disdain with a scoff. Let us hope that is not the case. Otherwise, I will demonstrate the true nature of suffering. In an instant, Hive disappeared from view. He emerged moments later in a concealed laboratory, surprising the team of laboratory technicians, inhuman researchers whom he had already brought under his influence. What is the status of our progress? Hive inquired. Lord Hive, one researcher responded with unwavering commitment, we have successfully decoded the energy profile of the Terrigen crystal. Our strategy is assured to succeed. The power of the Terrigen crystal was captivating. It invigorated both the mind and body. Under Hive's control, the laboratory transformed into a monument of fixation and insanity. My lord, a composed middle-aged Asian woman approached and bowed, I have visited the sanctuary. Numerous inhumans there are unwilling to follow your lead. The individual in question was Jiang, the mother of Daisy. It is of no consequence, Hive responded, completely unperturbed. I will personally visit them. Tomorrow, we will showcase our achievements. You and James will join me. It will be an honor, Jiang stated with deep respect, kneeling before him. To partake in the success of the inhuman race alongside their deity, what greater honor could exist? Other researchers observed with intense admiration. What qualifies Jiang and James as the ideal candidates? My lord, James said, his eyes filled with enthusiasm, the missile connectors and mist dispersal systems have been fully integrated. The only task remaining is to mount the payloads. Excellent, Hive murmured. Upon the completion of this phase, he would direct his focus towards the eradication of the mutants as well. In the end, only inhumans would persist. He would assume the role of their deity. Professional communication is essential in fostering effective relationships and achieving organizational goals. It involves clarity, respect, and a commitment to excellence in all interactions. At Sword headquarters, located near New York, Naruto took a moment to pause his work, attentively listening as Skynet provided the latest intelligence updates. Sir, according to reliable information, Baron Strucker has obtained the Terrigen crystal. The Terrigen crystal is a renowned substance that was uncovered by ancient inhumans. The mist has the potential to initiate terrigenesis, thereby awakening dormant abilities in those possessing inhuman DNA. However, the process incurred significant costs. The Terrigen mist altered genetic code. If the subject's DNA is not compatible, the potential outcomes may include mutation, deformity, or fatality. A number emerged from the mist as distorted, grotesque entities. Hive's objective was unmistakable. He aimed to utilize the Terrigen mist as a weapon. By distributing it worldwide, he could compel every individual to undergo transformation. The survivors would be integrated into his new inhuman empire. What is the method? There were only 10 feasible options available for disseminating the mist on a global scale. The most effective option was unequivocal: ballistic missiles. Hive intended to integrate the Terrigen crystal into missile warheads, detonate them in the atmosphere, and allow the mist to disperse across the globe. As the realization solidified in his mind, Naruto's expression remained composed, but his voice became incisive. Initiate comprehensive monitoring of all missile launch facilities located within U.S. territory. It is imperative to be informed of the precise moment Hive takes action. With that, Naruto redirected his focus to his latest endeavor, a next-generation suit of armor. One crafted not solely for combat, but for the preservation of the species. This occasion demands absolute precision. Sir, We have experienced a complete loss of external communication at the missile base in Nevada. The current status indicates that the launch sequence has been initiated. The voice of Skynet resonated within Naruto's neural network. Naruto took a moment to halt his tasks. It is now unequivocal. It was Hive. Recently, Hive has taken control of all personnel within the missile facility. At this moment, he was positioned within the control center, accompanied by Jiang, James, and a number of Inhumans. Accompanying them were Magneto and Namor. The Terrigen crystals were successfully mounted, and the launch sequence was initiated. With a single command, numerous large missiles would launch into the atmosphere. A countdown of 5 minutes commenced, as mandated by the launch system. Within the control room, red digital numbers continued their relentless countdown on the screen. Dr. Chris, the individual responsible for the installation of the warheads, was positioned in the corner, his gaze fixed on the ominous red countdown. His heart was beating with intense urgency. A few days prior, an enigmatic group presented him with a substantial proposal, an amount of money greater than he had ever encountered, in return for his technical expertise. Chris prioritized financial gain above ethical considerations. He consented promptly. Upon realizing the full extent of their plan, he fell to the ground in disbelief. Indeed, he had a strong affinity for wealth. However, this pertained to the conclusion of the entire world. What value does all that wealth hold if there is no environment remaining to utilize it? Doctor, Hive stated, his voice laced with disdain as he looked down at Chris. It is imperative that your missile parameters are precise. Failure to ensure this could lead to significant consequences. Rest assured, my lord. Everything is in order, Chris stated, managing a strained smile. He contemplated his fate, believing he was already a lost cause. Regardless of the outcome of the launch, survival was not an option. The passage of time continued. With each passing second, every number on the screen resonated like a heavy impact against his chest. The countdown unexpectedly halted. The red digits ceased suddenly at 3:29:78. Subsequently, another line of red text appeared, access denied. Oh my goodness! Chris exclaimed. I am very much alive. A profound sense of relief enveloped him, leading him to descend to the floor, quaking with elation. It felt as though one was being pulled away from a precarious situation. If no one else had been observing, he may have begun whistling with pleasure. The individual who took command of the launch protocol. They have truly become an invaluable source of support for me. Chris experienced a sense of great joy. In contrast, Hive did not meet expectations. At the moment his grand plan was poised to unfold, an individual had the audacity to interrupt him. With a display of intense frustration, Hive struck the console with his fist. The metallic casing sustained significant damage from his strike, emitting sparks as power surged and wires fractured. All individuals in the vicinity reacted with surprise. Chris's smile disappeared immediately upon encountering Hive's unsettling gaze. He sensed the chilling presence of mortality looming just behind him. You, come here, Hive commanded. Reconfigure the flight controls. Bypass the lockdown and initiate the missile launch. What, me? I'm a missile guidance expert, not a programmer. Quote. Chris's voice faltered, fear evident in his tone. At that moment, the instinct for survival emerged. Please hold on for a moment. I have just recalled an important detail. There may be an alternative solution. I believe I can find a way to resolve this issue. Without awaiting a response, Chris entered the control module to initiate a repair attempt. He was uncertain of his actions, yet he had no alternative. At this juncture, even random speculation proved to be more advantageous than having no approach at all. Hive directed his attention towards James. Please proceed outside to conduct a reconnaissance. I suspect that the Black One may be aware of our presence. Magneto and Namor, you are assigned to secure the base. Eliminate any intruders immediately. Hive issued his directives with the unwavering authority of a sovereign leading his forces. Magneto and Namor exchanged glances, both clearly expressing their irritation, yet remained silent as they turned to depart. Despite their resentment, they had established a hierarchy with Hive at the top during this tenuous partnership. They were not in favor of it, however, for the time being, they tolerated it. A blue shimmer enveloped James, and in an instant, he disappeared from the control room. Teleportation. That was his contribution. His capability to transition between locations has enabled Hive to acquire several essential resources throughout their operations. However, just as abruptly, James re-emerged, returning to the same room. What just occurred? Hive's expression became serious. James hesitated, appearing perplexed and unsettled. What he failed to recognize was that Naruto had established an atomic force field encompassing the entire base. Inside that barrier, teleportation was impossible, not even for someone as adept as James. Hive's expression contorted. He was acutely aware of it now, that unmistakable presence. Demise. For the first time in millennia, Hive accurately perceived the imminent threat of his own destruction approaching. He had traversed the vast emptiness of space for countless millennia, enduring hardships and patiently anticipating an opportunity to return. As the moment of his significant achievement approached, he observed the adversary during that confidential assembly. An entity surpassing all that he had envisioned. Hive was acutely aware that victory was unattainable. At this moment, it is not feasible. It is not available at this time. However, he did have some alternatives available to him. He turned deliberately, resting his hand on James's shoulder. "I apologize," Hive stated in a subdued tone. "However, I find myself with no alternative." James barely managed to utter the word before his scream was abruptly silenced. His scream was stifled within him. Before he had the opportunity to respond, he experienced a total loss of sensation throughout his body. A multitude of parasitic organisms emerged from the hand Hive had placed on James's shoulder, enveloping him completely. James sensed the deterioration of his body, experiencing a gradual decline. He felt an overwhelming urge to scream and to fight back, but no sound emerged from him. The parasites disintegrated his body, atom by atom, before reverting to Hive's original form. A brilliant blue luminescence emanated from Hive's form as he released an intense roar. Numerous parasites erupted from his body, advancing toward the astonished Inhumans in the control room. They were swiftly absorbed into Hive's body, becoming an integral part of him before they had the opportunity to react. Hive emitted another loud call. The immense force emanating from his figure shattered sections of the missile control console, with sparks scattering in all directions. Acquiring the abilities of the Inhumans enhanced his capabilities. However, up to this point, Hive had solely fed on humans. In his perspective, humans represented a deviation, whereas Inhumans embodied a sense of kinship. He consistently declined to partake in the consumption of his own species. For millennia, he had adhered to this principle. However, today he has broken it. Today marked the first occasion since his exile to the stars that he experienced a profound sense of desperation. Not even during his struggles for survival on alien worlds had he experienced such overwhelming hopelessness. His comprehensive strategy had yet to commence, and it was already beginning to fall apart. However, if realizing his ambitious vision required relinquishing his final vestige of integrity, then that was the price he was willing to pay. Magneto and Namor remained motionless, observing as Hive systematically absorbed the others, one by one. At that moment, the sole individual remaining in the room was Dr. Chris, diligently focused on revising the missile control program. "I apologize, my allies," Hive stated with gravity, addressing the apprehensive Magneto and Namor. "I kindly request that you join me in this endeavor. Together, we will advance your aspirations." With a swift motion of his arm, a lethal cloud of parasites advanced toward them. The two legends exerted their full strength, standing firm against the overwhelming swarm. It was akin to attempting to restrain a tidal wave with one's bare hands. At the critical moment when the swarm threatened to overwhelm them, the imposing alloy door of the control center swung open with a resounding crash. The damaged door was propelled backward, colliding with the missile control station and resulting in its destruction amidst a surge of flames and sparks. Amidst the smoke and flashing lights, a crimson V-shaped visor emerged through the haze. Naruto. Hive promptly ceased his consumption. A surge of potent telekinesis emanated from his body, dispersing the smoke cloud. He gazed at the black armor positioned before him, simmering with anger. He had assimilated numerous Inhumans, as well as aspects of Magneto and Namor. Energy coursed through him with the intensity of a tempest. Electric fields emanated from his skin, with lightning coursing from every pore, distorting the metal within the room. He attempted to take command of the black armor's metal, but there was no response. With a powerful surge, Hive released a wave of silver-white electricity, incinerating everything within the control room. The lightning surged forward with precision, striking directly at Naruto. As the blinding flash dissipated and the smoke cleared, the crimson glow of Naruto's V-shaped visor remained steadfast and undisturbed. His obsidian armor remained completely unblemished. "It is now my turn." Naruto's voice carried a chill that could freeze the very air around him. The armor's power systems activated, and his right arm transformed into a polished longsword. He executed a swift strike toward Hive. Panic surged within Hive's heart. He had just absorbed a significant amount of energy and believed he could finally compete with Naruto. However, that particular exchange revealed a harsh reality: he was far from the mark. Hive let out a powerful scream, channeling his abilities. He extracted moisture from the atmosphere, creating a protective barrier of water in front of him. Simultaneously, his form became indistinct as he executed a rapid series of strikes. His punches were executed with such speed that they appeared to distort space, striking toward Naruto with the force of meteors. Naruto's visor displayed a brief flicker. His AI brain core determined the most effective response in mere milliseconds. With a swift motion of his longsword, Naruto skillfully deflected Hive's punch. "Silence, please." The sound of metal slicing through flesh resonated throughout the room. Hive's two hands struck the ground with a jarring impact. A swarm of parasites erupted from the severed stumps, retreating into his body in a state of panic. His expression contorted with discomfort, yet his remarkable regenerative capabilities activated immediately, swiftly restoring his arms. Hive emitted a powerful roar, generating a formidable subsonic shockwave. The force was substantial. Metal walls disintegrated into fine particles. By absorbing Magneto's powers, Hive skillfully manipulated the surrounding metallic debris to form a substantial curved blade. "Die!" he shouted, propelling the metal blade and a concentrated subsonic shockwave towards Naruto. Unexpectedly, a milky white shield materialized before Naruto. The metal blade of Hive, accompanied by a powerful shockwave, struck the circular shield with force. The shield effectively absorbed and neutralized the entire attack with a subtle shimmer of white light. "This cannot be happening," Hive gasped. However, before he could complete that thought, a sudden flash of sword light appeared before him, hurtling directly toward him. A black glowing blade shot right through Hive's chest, nailing him to the control room wall like a bug stuck on a pin. "Haha, sure thing. Go for it. No matter what happens, I'll just bounce back with a fresh start. Everything you care about is going to be crushed under my heel," Hive laughed crazily. "To be honest, I wasn't really into this one anyway." He laughed like crazy, his eyes sparkling with a wild energy, not like someone on the brink of death, but more like a butcher relishing the thought of his next catch. Naruto tilted his head a bit. "So, I've heard this same speech before. Another guy gave it a shot with me as well." While he was talking, Naruto's hands moved in a complicated way, and black symbols started to spread out on the floor below him. Hive's expression changed. There was something about the dark magical array lighting up under his feet that sent a chill down his spine. It was a heavy, overwhelming fear that hit him all at once, like a tidal wave crashing over his mind. Things didn't turn out great for that guy. Let's just say, things got a bit messy. Naruto stretched out his fingers. With a quick snap, the circle came to life. Flames as white as bone shot up from the floor. These flames were anything but ordinary, they were hellfire. Screams, raw, piercing, inhuman, echoed through the control room as Hive's body was consumed by the soul-burning flames from the hell dimension of Mephisto 023. Muscles were on fire, nerve endings just kind of melted away. The many souls caught in the parasitic swarm cried out in pain as the fire took them, one after another. They made a run for it from Hive's body, but no one managed to get away. They all turned to ash and smoke. When the flames finally went out and the magic circle disappeared, it felt like they had never been there at all. All that remained was a charred scorch mark where Hive used to be. "Sir, Red Queen's voice echoed in Naruto's neural network. Hive's vital signs have stopped. He's totally out of the picture now. Hive, the first Inhuman born on Earth and the figure that Inhumans whispered about as a god, the ancient leader of Hydra that had been revered for thousands of years, was now just a heap of burnt remains. His soul didn't make it either. The two half-eaten figures, Magneto and Namor, were sprawled out close by, their eyes wide open in shock. They just couldn't wrap their heads around what they had just seen. Naruto glanced back at them. "I figured," he said, not really showing much emotion. He then turned around to face them completely. "Looks like you two aren't needed anymore. Starting now, you'll be working with me, but in a different way. You'll be helping to manage both mutants and Atlanteans." A burst of bright blue energy formed in Naruto's hand. Before the two shocked guys could even process what was happening, twin beams of plasma shot through their heads, taking them out in an instant. Magneto and Namor, the ones who stirred up the conflict between land and sea, were gone. "Hey, just a heads up, but it looks like Magneto and Namor have flatlined," Red Queen said, keeping her cool. "Looks like we've still got two life forms hanging out in the control room next door. Looks like one of them is Dr. Chris." Naruto had spotted the two people but thought they weren't important during the Hive battle. So, now that the fight's done, one of them is kind of stumbling out from behind the doorway. "Hey, it's Dr. Margot." Chris was crouched by the control room entrance, eyes glued to the scene as the fight played out, feeling a mix of fear and disbelief. When Hive was burned alive, he almost let out a scream of joy, but managed to hold it back just in time. So, Naruto's got that scarlet V-shaped visor looking right at him. Dr. Chris stood there, completely caught off guard. He stepped out with wobbly legs, hands up in the air like a clown giving up. "Hey, it's not on me. I totally get it, I was in the same boat. I promise, I really didn't help him. He just asked me to make a few adjustments to the missile parameters. I had no idea he was thinking about firing that. I swear, I didn't even lay a finger on the console. Please, sir, have a heart. I'm really pleading here, just don't pull that trigger." Quote. The words spilled out quickly, like rapid-fire shots. The guy had obviously gone over this speech a bunch of times while dealing with Hive's scary reign. But Naruto wasn't really paying attention to anything he was saying. He had already figured out who the man was with his facial recognition systems. "Hey, is this Dr. Margot Chris?" Naruto was curious and asked. Absolutely, that's me." Chris was nodding so quickly that he resembled a bobblehead. "I've checked out some of your papers on neural mechanical integration. Some of your theories were really eye-opening. They really sparked some helpful ideas for me." Chris blinked, completely taken aback. He couldn't quite tell if it was sarcasm or genuine praise. "Oh, come on. Those were just a few simple observations. Honestly, it's not really anything special. Take it easy, Doc," Naruto said in a chill tone. "I'm not here to cause you any harm. I think your skills are too good for a place like this. Being around terrorists and monsters just doesn't seem right." Naruto looked around the burnt room before moving on. "I'm excited to offer you a position. As a unique consultant." "Huh, what?" Chris stumbled over his words. Just a moment ago, he was convinced his head was about to be blown off, and now here he was, getting a job offer. Absolutely, for sure," he exclaimed. "Sure thing. So, welcome to Sword, Doctor." Naruto knelt down and carefully lifted the unconscious Jia Ying into his arms. A swirling portal of golden light appeared next to him. "Go ahead and step through. You'll get a position assigned to you, and then you'll need to sign some clearance protocols. Oh, and there are a bunch of confidentiality agreements involved." Naruto stepped into the portal. Chris just stood there, staring in disbelief at the mind-bending anomaly in front of him. After a bit of silence, he tightened his jaw and walked behind. "It's simply a bright circle of light, no worries. That's completely normal, isn't it?" And just like that, he took a step forward, into the unknown. Once the battle was over, things went back to normal. Red Queen had made sure that there was absolutely no sign of Hive remaining in this world. So, the Inhumans and the regular folks that Hive had taken control of with those parasitic organisms. They've all been moved over to the Skynet base. So, Dr. Doom came up with this cool programmable nanobot that was made just to get rid of the hive parasites lurking inside their bodies. Wait, is this my mom? Quake stood behind a clear glass wall, looking in shock at the middle-aged Asian woman who was peacefully sleeping inside. Hey Miss Daisy, just so you know, the biological data shows that your genetic match with this person is 99.99%. Biologically speaking, she's your mom, the Red Queen said casually next to her. Daisy suddenly felt like she couldn't catch her breath. She had no idea who her biological parents were. Even though she had looked for them before, it always seemed to lead to disappointment. And now, as she finally stood in front of her mother, she just didn't know what to say. Daisy, just take a deep breath. Just take a deep breath and approach this with a calm heart, Wanda said softly. Daisy sniffled and held back her tears, managing to put on a weak smile. I get it, Wanda. It's just a bit tough to take it all in at once. Hey, Wanda said, raising an eyebrow and pointing toward the woman inside. Looks like she's waking up. Honestly, the timing was just terrible. Daisy still hadn't figured out what she was going to say, but at this point, there was no turning back. Noticing her hesitation, Wanda said, how about we wait a bit longer? It's all good, Daisy said, taking a deep breath and giving a small smile. It's time to confront the reality. Running isn't going to make a difference. So, she just pushed the door open and strolled right in. Jia Ying slowly opened her eyes, and as soon as she spotted the girl standing next to her, she froze in place. She looked at Daisy's familiar features, so much like her own. She just couldn't think of anything. Wait, are you Daisy? She whispered, her voice shaking, and her eyes were already filled with tears. Yeah, I'm Daisy, she said confidently, meeting her gaze. So, you're Jia Ying, right? My mom. Absolutely. Kiddo, absolutely, I really am sorry. Jia Ying cried freely, tears rolling down her lovely face. You know, back in the day, there was this emergency, and I really had no choice but to leave you at the orphanage. She was crying as she spoke, sharing with Daisy the truth about what happened all those years ago. Daisy sat there, just listening. Once the initial shock wore off, she found that the resentment she'd held against her birth parents for so long had unexpectedly started to ease. I'm not asking for your forgiveness, Jia Ying said at last, her voice barely above a whisper. I've definitely made a lot of mistakes. As long as you can enjoy a happy life from here on out, that's all I really need. Absolutely. I've already found my purpose, Daisy said, her smile bright and full of determination. I'm going to be an agent of S.W.O.R.D. I'm ready to live a life that really counts. In that moment, all those years of emotional baggage just fell away, and Daisy felt this incredible wave of relief wash over her. She could feel the chains in her heart break apart and fall away. The energy that used to push back against her control now flowed easily through her veins. Hey Miss Wanda, just a heads up, Miss Daisy's energy index is going up really fast. You know, it looks like a person's emotional state really can impact their powers, Red Queen said, her digital image flickering next to Wanda. You know, humans are just such odd beings, Wanda quietly spoke to herself, not quite sure if she was referring to Daisy or if she meant herself. Time just flew by. After a few months, New York was back to its familiar groove. The Atlanteans, who once seemed ready to take on the surface world, have just disappeared without a word. There haven't been any major incidents in the city since then. What was left were just a few minor disturbances from some rogue superpowered folks. With the Avengers keeping a close eye, those little sparks of chaos were quickly put out before they had a chance to turn into something bigger. You know, people often say, sure, New York is always in trouble, and they say it with a bit of a laugh, but hey, we've got the Avengers looking out for us, right? That was the comfort that New Yorkers held onto. Seriously, how many cities get to see superheroes every single day? Hey there, what's on your mind? In the heart of Avengers Tower, where the high-tech lab hummed with the sound of machinery, Reed Richards shot a concerned look at Tony Stark. Hey Tony, do you honestly believe that what we're creating can fix everything? Is this it, once and for all? Tony just shrugged his shoulders. Hey Reed, we've really nailed it with this solution. Machines that are always on, never get tired, and can run around the clock. Don't you think that's just what we need with all the threats popping up these days? With a smirk, he said, since I became Iron Man, I haven't even had a chance for a real date. I can totally see Susan bringing that up all the time, Reed said with a hint of sarcasm. At that, Tony's face lit up with a playful grin. You really know her well. As they chatted away, Dr. Bruce Banner was sitting quietly at the console, his fingers moving swiftly over the keyboard, with lines of code appearing on the screen. The final phase is done, Banner said, hovering his finger over the enter key. Are we all set? Tony and Reed shared a glance and then gave each other a solid nod. Banner hit the key. Earth's defense is just getting started. Stay tuned for more. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this video. I'm thrilled you watched the video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe for even more exciting content coming your way soon.